This is the AI Brief, brought to you by the YPO Technology Network, and I'm Stephen Forte. This is our weekend edition, and where we put the headlines aside, pick one topic that matters, and go deep. No rapid fire, just clarity on something worth understanding well. This week, your AI tools don't share a brain, something worth saying at the top. By the end of this episode, you will be able to build the fix yourself in about half an hour out of things you already have. There is no product to buy. There is barely anything to build. It is one page and one notebook per project. And the reason it works has almost nothing to do with artificial intelligence. If you caught episode 125, Rent the Model, Own the Layer, that one named the 4 things that should live outside any AI vendor: memory, instructions, credentials, routing. Today is the deep dive on Move 1, not where memory should live, how it actually moves. So count your surfaces. There is a chat app on your phone for the questions you have in a taxi. There is a chat app on your desktop, the one you open when you actually need to think. If anyone in your company builds anything, there is a coding agent and an AI that works directly inside your files rather than in a chat window. And increasingly, there is a fourth, an autonomous agent that runs scheduled work while nobody is watching. Every one of them gets smarter every quarter. Every one of them wakes up ignorant of the others. The 2 hours of reasoning you did on the desktop at 8 this morning are invisible to the phone at noon. The coding agent has never heard of either of them, so you re-explain your own business to your own tools several times a day. Picture Kestrel Precision, a 200-person instruments maker in Adelaide. Its chief executive uses AI more seriously than most of her board would guess. She is also, without ever deciding to be, the integration layer. She is the only component in her AI operation that knows what happened yesterday. Now, at this point, most people push back, and they push back the same way every time. Hold on, I set up a project for that. And they did. Anyone working seriously with these tools now works inside project containers. A project in Claude, Anthropic's assistant, a space or a project in Perplexity, the research and search tool, a project in Microsoft Copilot, or inside an agent workspace like CoWork. You create one, you give it standing instructions, you upload the reference documents, and every conversation you start inside it arrives already oriented. I want to be clear that this is genuinely good, and I use them constantly. I mean it. The container solves 2 real problems, and it solves them properly. It holds your standing instructions, how we do things here, what good output looks like, what never to do, and it holds your reference material, the contract, the specification, the brand guide. Those are 2 of the 3 kinds of memory a working operation actually needs. Call them the how and the what. The third kind is the where things stand. That is the one the container does not hold. Now, some of these products have started keeping memory across the conversations inside a project, and that is a real improvement. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But look closely at what it is. It is an accumulation of the conversations you happen to have in that room. It is not a composed page telling you where the work stands this morning. And underneath the feature question, there is a structural one, which no feature any of them ships will fix. The container belongs to the vendor. Your Claude project does not exist inside Perplexity. Your Copilot project does not exist inside your coding agent. And your coding agent working through your files at 2 in the morning cannot file anything into any of them. The right path into project knowledge is a human being uploading a document. So here is the honest arithmetic. You are organized, so you set one up on every surface. You now have 4 containers. You still have 0 shared brains, and you are maintaining the same context in 4 places, which is worse than maintaining it in 1, because 3 of them are quietly out of date, and not one of them will tell you which 3. A project is a very good room. It is not a memory. What we are building today does not replace that room. It is the one page you carry between rooms. There is a second thing people point to, and it is the transcript itself. Isn't the AI already saving all of this? Partly, it saves the work product, the documents you asked for, the analysis you commissioned, the code that got written. Those are on disk. Those are fine. What it does not save is the state around the work, the decision you made and why, the option you examined and rejected so that nobody reopens it in 3 weeks, the thing that is still open. All of that lives in one session's transcript on one machine, and nothing ever reads it again. Your files remember the work, nothing remembers the state. So here is the fix, and I want to warn you in advance how unimpressive it is. 2 files per project. The first file is the brief, 1 page, where the project stands right now, what is open, what was decided recently, what to watch. It is written in Markdown, plain text with a little light formatting, the format every AI model reads natively, and every human can open in anything. 1 page is a constraint, not a target. The moment it becomes 3, it has stopped being a brief. The second file is the journal. Short dated notes, 1 per working session that actually mattered. Never edited, only ever added to. Today's note does not correct Tuesday's note. It sits underneath it. If that sounds abstract, here it is in a language every executive already speaks. You have a briefing binder and a chief of staff who maintains it. Every assistant who walks in reads the front page before they start. Every assistant who walks out files a short memo about what they did and what they decided. And overnight, the chief of staff reads the memos and rewrites the front page. The only unusual thing about this arrangement is that the AI is both the assistants and the chief of staff. You are not in that loop. You are the person who reads the front page with coffee, which brings us to the part that makes it all move. And the part I have to explain properly because it is engineering vocabulary that has never had a reason to leave engineering. The files live in version control, specifically in Git. Git is the filing system the world's software is built on. Effectively, every serious piece of software written in the last 15 years lives in it. A repository is one project's drawer inside that filing system. A commit is a saved change with a short note attached saying what changed and why. 4 things it does, and every one of them is something a memory system would otherwise have to build from scratch. It keeps every version of every page forever. It records who changed what, when, and why. It makes conflicting edits loud instead of silent, which is precisely the opposite of what a shared drive does to you, and it costs nothing. There is a 5th thing, and for our purposes, it is the one that matters. When a note is filed from any device, it is delivered to every device, not copied later, not queued behind sync software, filed and delivered as a single motion. This is the most boring possible technology. In infrastructure, boring is the endorsement. And if you have an engineering background, you will have noticed that I invented nothing here. A shared workspace that specialists read and write instead of talking to each other is a Blackboard architecture described in 1985. A compact summary plus a log of everything since is how database systems have survived crashes since the early 90s. Those people deserve the credit, not me. The only new thing is pointing 40-year-old ideas at a problem that did not exist until we all started running 4 assistants at once. Now the loop, end-to-end, 3 moves, and only one of them involves you. The first move, every surface hydrates before it works. It reads the brief, then it reads any journal notes newer than the brief. That second clause is doing more work than it looks like. The front page may be a day old, but everything that has happened since is sitting in the journal directly beside it in date order. So a session at 4 in the afternoon is exactly as current as one at 8 in the morning. A daily rhythm adds 0 staleness. That is the property that makes a once-a-day job sufficient, and it is the whole reason this works without anything running in real time. Kestrel's chief executive opens her phone in that taxi. It reads 1 page and 2 notes, and it knows where the project stands. The second move, after meaningful work, the surface files 1 note. The gate is a significance test, and honestly, the gate is the entire discipline. Was a decision made? Did the state change? Did we learn something a future session will need? If yes, file the note. If no, file nothing at all. Quiet sessions write nothing. That is not laziness. It is design. Noise is how memory systems die. Anyone who has watched a company wiki fill up with meeting minutes that nobody has opened since the day they were written has already seen this failure in a different costume. The third move, once a day, the fold. A scheduled job reads whatever notes are new and rewrites the front page from scratch. One page, current, time-stamped. The notes stay exactly where they are because the journal is the record and the brief is only ever the current view of it. And your entire recurring role in this system is three things. Say, wrap up at the end of a session that mattered. Click approve, read one page with coffee. Now, the serious objection, and it deserves a serious answer. Memory products already do this, and they do it without you lifting a finger. Isn't a hand-fed journal a step backward? Two answers. The first is that the journal is not hand-fed. The AI writes it, understanding instructions at the end of a session. Nobody types it. Both approaches are touchless for the human, so touchlessness is not actually the axis of comparison. It only sounds like it is. The second answer is the real one. The difference is where the judgment happens. An extraction tool watches your conversations, saves what looks important, and hands back fragments by similarity when you ask. MemZero and Zep are the dedicated ones. Your chat app very likely has a version built in by now that is a court stenographer with an excellent search engine. Everything was recorded, nothing was decided. A brief is a handover memo written by somebody who was in the room. Somebody looked at 11 things that happened this week and judged that 3 of them matter on Monday. That judgment is the entire product. And I want to give the people building extraction memory real credit here because I mean it. Watching a conversation and pulling durable facts out of it unprompted is genuinely hard engineering, and they did it. My argument is about category fit, not quality. They built an excellent archive. An archive is not a briefing, which points at a law worth writing on the wall. With memory, you pay a little at write time or you pay a lot at read time. Extraction feels free because nobody ever composes the current picture. So the composing gets done at every read instead, badly by search ranking, and the shortfall gets covered by you out loud, re-explaining. That re-explaining you do several times a day is not an annoyance. It is the read time bill, and you've been paying it in cash this whole time, none of which means throwing the memory store away. It gets demoted out of the where things stand job it was never built for, and into the archive, the what did we decide back in March library, and it gets fed better material by a journal of deliberate notes than it ever got by scraping conversations. Which is the same move we made with the project container. Nothing gets thrown out. Everything ends up in the tier that suits it. So, does any of this actually work? I tested it from the weakest surface I have, deliberately. A cloud session with no local disk at all, holding nothing but standard connectors. A connector being the plugin that lets an AI reach an outside system on your behalf. Every piece of content in the test was synthetic. No client material anywhere near it. 5 legs that the machine has to be able to run on its own. Query the memory store, create the project's memory folder, write a brief into it, write the return note, read the whole thing back to hydrate. 5 out of 5, first attempt. The test also handed me a lesson I had not asked for. Halfway through, one of the third-party connectors simply dropped, disconnected mid-session, no warning, no explanation. The plain files in my own storage kept working the entire time. Connectors are guests. Files are family. There was a second lesson, and it was sharper than the first. When I queried the memory store for the state of a project, it returned scraps. Genuine scraps, accurate fragments, correctly retrieved, adding up to nothing you could act on. I had spent a week building the argument for this architecture. The query made it in one line. And as of this week, it is not a test anymore. The convention is running live on a production repository, memory folder committed, first front page written, journal entries recording real decisions, every surface reading before it works, with one honest exception, which I will come back to in a moment, because the risk in this system is no longer transport. Transport is solved. The risk is discipline. And there are exactly 2 rules that keep the thing from rotting. Rule 1, The daily fold is a classifier, not a copier. A memory store remembers everything faithfully and indiscriminately: names, email addresses, figures nobody ever verified, notes about how to get into things. If the fold copies all that onto the front page, you have just multiplied the number of places your most concentrated context lives. And you have done it in the one file that every surface reads first. So the job has to filter. Credentials never travel. Nothing about access keys or how to get into anything belongs on that page ever. Unverified numbers carry their caveat or they stay out. People become roles wherever a role will do because the client lead approved it, travels better and leaks less than a name and an email address, and where a project's data has to stay inside a particular country or a particular tenant. Its memory folder lives there too. Same convention, different address. Rule 2, one brief per project. Exactly one. The temptation is a second brief just for this quarter's push. Then a third for a work stream. Resist it because the moment there are two, every surface has to guess which one is true. And a memory system that requires guessing is worse than no memory system at all. Depth stays down in the project. The brief is the single top layer, or it is nothing. And at the top of every one of these files sits a timestamp and a one-line status so that any surface or any human can judge in a single glance whether the page in front of them is current. A briefing without a timestamp is a rumor. So the executive version of the whole thing: one folder, two files, one habit, carried by the most boring technology in the building. If you want to try it, pilot it on one project, the hot one, the one you are still thinking about on a Sunday afternoon. 2 weeks is enough to know whether it is working. And here is that honest exception I promised. For the first week, run the daily fold yourself by hand. 5 minutes reading the page your AI just wrote, asking one question: did it capture what I would have written? Automating a bad summary is exactly how these systems rot quietly, and by the time you notice, every surface has been trusting it for a month. That is the piece I am still doing manually right now, on purpose. Your tools will keep changing. The repository doesn't have to rent the model, own the memory. That is the YPO Tech Network AI Brief Weekend Edition for Sunday, August 16th. I am Stephen Forte. If this found you on a Sunday, share it with a fellow member who could use the perspective. I will be back Monday with more. Until then, stay sharp.